I'll be honest, I didn't really know if it was a place for me because there definitely weren't any brown girls like me, you know, definitely no Muslims, no Pakistanis working in the radio station. You either involve your family in your life or you decide to do the double life thing, right? I've done the double life thing. I've done the double life thing with relationships, you know, I've done the double life things with the kapade that I decide to wear.
You couldn't swim and you learned how to swim?
Yes.
And that is funny, right? Because a lot of Asian people,
Can't swim.
myself included, I put my hands up.
I'm so glad you're admitting
I'll admit it, man. Listen, I know where my flaws are. I am not the best swimmer.
You speak to Apne about it. Oh, you can't swim. Oh, I can't swim. We all can't swim. Let's sit around and talk about we can't swim. The Obu can't swim. My Obu, you know, they just can't swim. Again, you go to school and if you're friends with, you know, Gore, Kale, whoever, and they can swim, you literally feel like the only person on the planet that doesn't have this skill.
Yeah. Welcome to Aik Cup Chai. This is a podcast presented by Independent Urdu, where we speak to prominent figures within the South Asian entertainment creative industries and find out more about them from a more intimate perspective. My name is Mim Shaikh. This is my co-host Ali. And today we are joined by a friend, first and foremost, but a very talented individual who is a presenter in her own right. She's created her own documentaries. She presents on radio on a local level, and she's absolutely amazing, full of energy. Summaya Mughal in the building. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction. I was like, how is he going to introduce me?
Nah, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show and taking the time out. Obviously, I'm wet because of the rain outside. I literally parked up my car, jetted down, didn't want to keep you waiting, just to have the conversation and start things off. Now, obviously, you're a presenter first and foremost. How did you get into presenting and why did you want to become a presenter in the first place?
It was the wildest thing. So I was actually going to become an accountant.
Okay.
No shade on that. But then I rejected my graduate job. I'm from Nottingham and was kind of like, this doesn't quite feel right for me. I've always been more creative. I was working in a shirt shop and then I found out about an audition, which was basically like X Factor for radio is the best way to describe it, for BBC Radio Nottingham, which is the local radio station. I didn't have any radio experience. I'd never been in a radio studio before in my life. I'll be honest, I didn't really know if it was a place for me because there definitely weren't any brown girls like me, you know, definitely no Muslims, no Pakistanis working in the radio station. But I went for it and alhamdulillah, I won it.
So that's interesting. You never saw yourself on a local level, like the presenters that were broadcasting on like BBC Radio Nottingham. None of them were like Asian, Muslim, or at all.
No. I mean, forget a local level. Do you see it on a national level?
It's very rare, yeah.
So growing up for me, and it's a big part of why I do what I do and why I try to be visible, even though I struggle to be visible because, you know, I'm not the sort of person that loves social media, and that's the place to be visible nowadays, right? So I kind of always have this dichotomy between wanting to be visible so that other people like me who were at the beginning of their journey or younger versions of me can see that it's a possibility, because I know what it's like to not have it. Growing up, it was Konnie, you know.
She was like one of the only like female presenters on like Blue Peter. Do you remember watching it? I see her a couple of times.
It was Konnie who literally now comes on my radio show, and every time she comes on the show I'm like, Konnie, I have to take a pinch me moment because this is like, you are like the person that I grew up watching. And Anita, Rani, that was it. But Muslims, Nathan, Pakistanis, who is there? So no, I didn't really feel like it was something for me. And I also think that culturally, it's not necessarily an industry that I felt like I could do from my family's perspective. You know, I love my Abu, I love my Emmy. My Abu's a doctor. He didn't understand broadcasting. So when I joined the BBC, we went through a whole journey of me having to try and understand what it was myself, but bring him on the journey as well.
How did you explain it to them in the beginning? Like when they might not understand like how much money you get paid or what your hours are? Was there like a clash there for you to like, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, there was a clash. I overcame it by, you have a choice, okay? You either involve your family in your life or you decide to do the double life thing, right? I've done the double life thing. I've done the double life thing with relationships, you know, I've done the double life things with the kapare that I decide to wear, and in terms of my career, I didn't want to do that because it's an industry where I've got to be visible, so my Abu's probably going to see me doing it. I just had to try and bring him on the journey with me. So show him the radio studio, bring him on the podcast that I recently did. Now he's on the TV all the time, you know. I get calls from the BBC like, can we borrow your dad for a piece that we're doing outside the masjid? And I'm like,
he's like outshining you now.
I think he's been on telly more than me. But no, it's been a whole journey to get to this point.
Yeah, because I think that's hard for a lot of people, like myself included, relate to that ability of like trying to persuade your parents, is this an okay industry, and kind of get their blessings for it.
Yeah.
So it's quite challenging, right?
Yeah.
But surely when you got your like radio show and it was more of a regular basis and you have a salary, did it become easier then?
I think the thing with Abu, because my mum, she raised me till I was about 12, then my parents separated, so that's why I talk about my dad a lot more. So he sort of raised me from the age of 12 onwards. I think with Abu, once I graduated and I had a job at Deloitte, which is the largest accountancy firm in the world, I had a job with HSBC, I had a job in the city of London, I already had 4 or 5 offers, and I had my degree. I think Abu was like, she's going to be okay. And the other thing was like, given my personality, he was probably thinking, if she decides that she wants to be an actress or a journalist, I probably can't stop her, right? So I think
that's hard though, because you're already cemented in a good paid position with these places like Deloitte and HSBC,
yes.
right? And you know that a certain amount of money is coming in every single month.
Yeah.
So to take that jump and that risk, not a lot of people would do it. Are you happy that you made that risk when you did?
Yeah, at the same time, though, if you're not happy, you're not happy, I guess, right? And you probably were sat at a desk and you were probably staring out a window and thought, this is not for me, and something just clicked in you and was like, I need to make that jump.
Yeah, I think so. I was really fortunate as a kid. I trained as an actress in a place called the Television Workshop in Nottingham, which is like BAFTA award winning, and there's loads of amazing people that have come out of that. And it was just like a drama school. So from a young age, I had the exposure to the creative industry. And I went to uni actually because I wanted to see if there was anything else that I could do that I would enjoy as much as the acting stuff. So that's why I went to university, and I would have done exactly the same thing now, because actually all of that experience of getting the degree and working in Germany and Hong Kong and Jersey and getting those graduate programs has equipped me so well now as a broadcaster. But it was always my intention to eventually leave. It was always a sort of backup plan. So when, in answer to your question, I was in a scenario in which I could choose, do you want to walk away from the grad stuff and this industry of accountancy, or do you want to do the creative stuff? It was terrifying. I didn't have, it wasn't like I had a job at the BBC lined up. I rejected the jobs, moved home, moved back in with my parents, and I was working in a shirt shop for like 8 months. I didn't have anything lined up. I remember the moment so vividly. I was at university and I was in a coffee shop and I was writing in my journal, and I was almost sort of tossing up, why would I go to Deloitte? Why would I not go to Deloitte? And just something in my, I don't know what to call it, but something in my stomach instinctively was like, nay, Summaya, this is not for you. And that's what I ran with. And alhamdulillah, honestly, I'm so glad that I did and that I ran with that instinct. But no, and I was rejecting a job in London on over 30 grand straight out of university.
What you done, which I think sometimes a lot of people don't do, is you listen to that inner voice.
Yeah.
Or that inner feeling, or whatever that is, right? Where people call it gut instinct, people call it intuition, whatever you want to call it, but you listen to it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people sometimes don't listen to that, and end up getting stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
But at least you now know you made the decision and this is what your life is like now.
Yeah.
So what on a day-to-day basis? Because on Instagram and your stories and stuff, I see you doing left, right, and center. Like you remind me of me in a sense of like I do different things in my creative career, right? But you're doing like one day you're doing like a play, another day you're on the radio, then you're doing a doc. Like what does a day in the life of what you're doing in your career like feel like now?
It's so funny you should ask that question because a friend of mine recently said, Summaya, please will you do a day in the life of? And I was like, okay, fine, sure, no problem. So I present on the radio Monday to Friday on BBC Radio Leicester.
Okay.
So my day job is on the radio. I do a 4-hour show, which is a combination of music and news stuff. But in addition to that, I'll do stuff on the television for regional news for the BBC. And on top of all of that, I'm always thinking about, okay, how can I take this story or this project or this idea to the next level? And so there'll be ideas that I've done, for example, Brown Girl Can't Swim, which was a podcast that I recently launched.
It is a podcast that people can listen to.
Yes, you can.
And the idea is the fact that you couldn't swim and you learned how to swim.
Yes.
And that is funny, right? Because a lot of Asian people,
Can't swim.
myself included, I put my hands up.
I'm so glad you're admitting
I'll
this.
admit it, man. Listen, I know where my flaws are. I am not the best swimmer.
Yes.
But there's a reason. When I was in school, I moved around a lot of schools in my childhood. So anytime I moved, I'd miss the swimming lessons that would happen at the previous school. So I never actually got taught it. So when I saw your doc, it related to me a little bit because I was like, oh, how did that? Did you learn how to swim?
Yeah.
Did you...
Mim, I can swim in a lake in the rain. Honestly, I'm like pro. I got asked to swim the channel the other day and I was like, what?
How what's that like? Like from going from 0 to like 100 where you can now do it. What's that process entail?
What was the reason? First of all, were you just like a bad swimmer or you just couldn't swim, period?
So it's so weird. So I had swimming lessons in school, which you have to have here in the UK. It's not something that, you know, is like in the curriculum in Pakistan, which is relevant because I mentioned that my obul raised me after the age of sort of 12. Obul couldn't swim, you know, and I just found it really ironic. And he still can't swim. He's learning now. But I just found it really ironic that my obul's job is to save people's lives every single day. And not to be morbid, but put him anywhere near Pani. If anything was to happen, he would struggle, you know, and he would be dependent on the support of people around him. But it's not his fault. He didn't learn. Academia was important. And so as a Muslim woman, after the age of 12, 13, when you're going through puberty and stuff like that, I'm not going to be running around swimming pool with my obuji, do you know what I mean? He ain't going to take me swimming, like with my arms and legs, my armpits, all that situation out. It's just not going to happen, right? So I had swimming lessons as a kid, but I'll be honest, I was like the kid in the class that just wasn't very good. Then the onus falls on your parents. And my parents, when they were together, they did take me and my little sister for a few extra swimming lessons. And the requirements at the time was you swim 25 meters in the pool. And it appeared that they didn't really care how you did it. You could do it on your front, on your back, upside down. But I think I must have swam a 25 meter length when I was like 6 or 7 years old on my back. But I never left those swimming lessons feeling like I knew how to swim. And so 20 years on, I've gone on holidays with friends. I've lived in the south of Germany next to a lake in one of the most beautiful places in the world and hidden the fact that I can't swim. None of my friends knew. And I just had a deep fear of deep water. It terrified me. And I'd always find ways to like not go in the water and everything.
So surely doing this experience must have been like terrifying.
Yes, it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
But you put yourself out of like your comfort zone and you went and done it. And anyone who does anything like that in whatever area of life, I have tremendous respect for. Yeah,
it was the most challenging thing personally and professionally, because you're admitting that you don't have a skill it feels like kids have in this country. You know, you speak to Apne about it. Oh, you can't swim. Oh, I can't swim. We all can't swim. Let's sit around and talk about we can't swim. Obu can't swim. You know, they just can't swim. Again, you go to school and if you're friends with, you know, Gore, Kale, whoever, and they can swim, you literally feel like the only person on the planet that doesn't have this skill. Yeah. So to admit that was a lot. But I did it because I was doing an interview on the breakfast show at the time on BBC Radio Leicester with the first female black swimmer for Team GB to compete in Olympic Games. Her name's Alice Deering, and she was talking about some of the challenges that the black community face in swimming. And I was like, wow, look at this girl. She's literally my age, and she is raising awareness about the challenges her community might face. Who is talking about this in our community? Where's the brown version of this? I couldn't see it. And so I felt like, okay, I suspect I'm not the only human on the planet that can't swim. Let me just put it out there. I got a tremendous response, and I felt like, okay, well, I'm going to
As
do
in
this
you went
really
public
visibly.
with the fact that you can't swim.
No, I didn't do that initially because I was embarrassed. So what I did was I put a video on social media and was like, "Hi, I'm just doing something for the BBC. Is anyone out there can't swim?"
Okay.
I was
Just
still
to,
really embarrassed by it.
to gauge like reaction from
Exactly,
people.
and it was that reaction that led me
Did
to be
did
like,
people get in touch and say I can't swim as well?
Hundreds of people.
Okay.
Not just us lot. Like, name a demographic. Old, young, white, black, man, woman. So many people. And I was like, okay, well, if this is how all of these people are feeling, and I don't have a massive following on social media, I ain't Mim Sheikh, do you know what I mean?
Oh, get out of
I've got
here.
like 2 followers. And I was
Relevant.
like, wow, okay, even if it's just for those 2 people, I need to do something about this. And that's why I reached out to Becky Adlington, who's a 4-time Olympic medalist. She is from down the road in Mansfield. I didn't know her. I just said, look, I've got an idea. Will you set me a challenge? And she was like, sure. So her and Alice, the Olympian I told you about, set me a challenge of learning to swim in 8 weeks and doing 500 meters in open water by the end of it.
Wow. So the time period is 2 months.
Yes.
That's can you swim?
Yeah.
Like good.
Yeah, I was up there. 'Cause
I bet I'm better
had
than
like
you.
the I had like the school. Everyone has the school stuff,
Yes.
and then my mum would always take me and my brother swimming all the time.
that's
She's
sick.
like, it's the most important thing. But it goes back to a stereotype. She's like, oh, it'll help you get taller. Didn't help me get taller, but
What, swimming helps you get taller?
well, that was the myth, innit? It was like,
Was it?
yeah, that
I didn't
it
know
helps
that.
you
I've
get
never
taller.
heard that one.
You just made that up.
I can see what my mum did, innit?
We've got like the Qatar World Cup. We've got like
Qatar.
Qatar,
Where you
right?
said it.
We have like what was the other one? We go through this experience of trying to make our parents happy or justifying or trying to do other things, which is exactly what I did.
It's a double-edged sword because obviously, like our parents, they want to push you into career paths that will get you the money, etc., and
Yeah.
be stable.
Yeah.
But they don't understand the other side of you not maybe being good at something or you're talented elsewhere to apply those talents.
As a Muslim, do I do this, this, this? As a Pakistani, do I do this, this, and this? And one of the lines is like, as a Pakistani, do I care about the opinions of aunties that I'm not actually related to, but will still somehow end up at my wedding? I'd feel like my sort of mission wouldn't be complete if it only finished in the UK. I do feel a degree and sense of responsibility to work in the developing world, whether that's, you know, areas of Pakistan or other countries.
But before we carry on, we're gonna have a sip of a chai.
G?
Yeah, Aik Cup Chai, man.
Oh, wow. Mem.
And I want to know what
Bismillah.
if you like it or not.
Lie to him.
I'm actually really impressed.
Oh, I'm just lying.
Look at her acting face.
No, do you know what? Okay, I'm going to be really honest with you.
Why is it okay or
No.
good?
I don't really drink tea.
Okay.
Welcome to the club.
I drink coffee. But if there's Desi chai on offer, I may or may not have it because I'm not really a fan. But this is a bit sweet.
It is.
And I've got a sweet tooth. So I'll only have tea if we're making like builder's tea. Then
like
I'll
5
have like 1 sugar and a malted milk biscuit.
Okay.
But this has got, you've put genie in it,
Put
haven't
some
you?
genie in it.
Shukriya.
Just to give
Shukriya,
it a little
bhai.
bit of
You know
taste.
what? If I didn't like it, I wouldn't drink it back.
You
will
know
be
what it
finished by the
was?
end.
One of our other guests that we had on, I gave without sugar, and they sipped it, and they were just like, "Nah, this is not
Yeah,
for
I
me."
don't think it's very nice without sugar.
Yeah, and it's not. So since then, I've been adding sugar to it, whether you have a sweet tooth or not. Just hopefully you like it.
Good.
Your show that you're talking about, Brown Girl Can't Swim, that went on to win an award, right?
Yeah, 2.
2 awards. Sorry.
Yeah.
Where were they, and how did that feel?
So the first award, I don't know which one meant more to me actually, because they're both really different. So the first award was an award from the city of Nottingham,
Amazing.
where I'm from, for contribution to community, and that one meant a lot. And when they did the speech, and you can see the video on my social media, I didn't know that I'd won it. Like, they were just like, just come to this award ceremony, it's about celebrating people in Nottingham. And I was like, all right, I'm from Nottingham, sure. And they did this whole like thesis about my life, and it was more about, actually the thing that meant the most was the impact that it had. And they basically were like, we are awarding this to somebody who has sort of spotlighted an issue that we have, recognized a gap, and put pressure on us as service providers in sport and the council to stop and to consider and see what we can do to accommodate this community. So the first was the Nottingham Award, which I got literally, I think it was a few days after I did the final swim. So I did the final swim in the lake on October 4th, and then a few days after that I was in you know, at the council house in Nottingham, and they awarded me that. And then the second one was really random, and I didn't expect to win it at all. It was like underdog. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you like put yourself in for a category and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to even get nominated because you're against Sky Sports and BBC News and stuff. That was the British Sports Journalism Award, and it won Podcast of the Year.
Sick. Really, really
which
good.
Is wild.
Yeah, because you're
like,
probably up
wild.
against, like you said, really big contenders.
Yeah, well, the contenders were, it was nominated for 2 categories, audio documentary and then podcast of the year. And in the podcast of the year category, if I remember correctly, we've got like the Qatar World Cup. We've got like Qatar,
where you
right?
said it.
We have like, what was the other one? Lionesses, okay? Yeah. So these are
big moments.
Big, and then you just see brown girl can't swim, and it's just looking at it is quite amusing. And I was like, we are underdog, but alhamdulillah, we are here wherever we go. And yeah, it was amazing because, and in my speech I said, like, I dedicated the award to every single adult that cannot swim or is a weak swimmer, because by me getting that award, it wasn't for me. Brown Girl Can't Swim wasn't for me. It was about raising this conversation. And if I can stand in front of a crowd of like the top people in sports, from Sky to The Athletic, and say like, this is a problem and what can we do about it, and can we raise this conversation?
Was your dad present for any of those award ceremonies?
Abu wasn't. He wasn't about, because I think that we were only allowed limited tickets for, I think he was working one night for the Nottingham Award, and then the other one, it was my producer was there.
Yeah. I say that to say, like, do you think it really like hit home from your dad's perspective in terms of like, not from your sense of justifying the wrong word, but in terms of that career switch? Do you think like it really hit home like when those awards come home as well?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I saved the best one for, and it's not an award, it's a speech, but I did a TED talk about a month ago, and I wanted Abu to be there. And when TED asked me to do the talk, they asked me a few years ago initially when I got my job on BBC Radio Leicester, but I was 24. I really didn't feel like I had anything to contribute to the world. And this is a TED talk, do you know what I mean? You've got to have something of like meaning.
Yeah,
you got to
say some good
stuff. Do you know what I mean? I know. I was like, no, I don't, thank you, I'm flattered, but I am not in a position to be able to say anything that I feel is going to be of true value. And then when they asked me this time and they said, we're coming to Nottingham for the first time, we've not been to Nottingham before, I was like, this feels right. And it was really important for me that Abu was in the audience, because my TED talk was all about that journey of, it was about realizing the value of your gift. So I believe everybody has a gift to give to the world, everyone, and we know what that is. It's the thing that we enjoy or that we're instinctively good at. And for some of us, because of our culture or our upbringing or our environment, we don't feel like we can embrace that gift. Mine is performing, and so we go through this experience of trying to make our parents happy or justifying or trying to do other things, which is exactly what I did, only to come to the realization maybe of this isn't right for me, which is what happened to me. And then actually taking that plunge and the benefits of what can happen when you do embrace that gift, not only for yourself, but for wider humanity. And so Abu was there and he was listening to me essentially saying, it was really hard growing up and not feeling accepted. It was really hard growing up feeling like what I was good at was inadequate and not worthy of celebration because it wasn't academic. But by the end of it, you know you've done good when Abu was like, Summaya, can you send me your TED Talk so I can send it to my friends? And I was like, chill, ball, no problem.
That's the cosign. That's basically the pat on the back.
Circle.
Do you think that's the root of like all problems in our culture though, in terms of people being scared to embrace like what they're good at, their talents? Like, you know, it's a double-edged sword, because obviously like our parents, they want to push you into career paths that will get you the money, etc., and be stable. Yeah. But they don't understand the other side of you not maybe being good at something, or you're talented elsewhere to apply those talents. Do you think that's like the root of problems in terms of like that problem could cause like lack of representation, as you were talking about earlier, in other places? Like when you were growing up, you didn't see anyone of brown, quote unquote, in certain places. But do you think that's maybe like the root of the problem that's causing it?
I think fear is certainly a factor, but to sort of give like my dad's generation, for example, the benefit of the doubt, where does it come from? It comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of, I want my children to have stability. Where are the industries where you're going to get stability typically? You know, what are the industries that are respected? Hence medicine, hence law, hence all of these other things. And, you know, if I have, inshallah, one day bachche, then I will probably be the same. If they turn around and said, I want to do something creative, I would be like, okay, but I would probably also say you get your education as well. So I think that it is a factor, but I don't think it comes from a place of malice. I think that one, it comes from a place of maybe fear and not understanding. 100%. The other side to it, though, and the side of it that I don't think is healthy, is I also think that it can come from a place of fear of other people's opinion and judgment. Massively. You know, like, oh, what my daughter's is what she's going to think. Yeah. Honestly, I don't care what Auntie Shazia thinks down the road now. I literally don't. And in my talk, I literally say, like, I break down a few stereotypes in the TED talk, and I'm like, okay, as a Muslim, do I do this, this, this? As a Pakistani, do I do this, this, and this? And one of the lines is like, as a Pakistani, do I care about the opinions of aunties that I'm not actually related to, but will still somehow end up at my wedding? Yes. And that is the problem. That's what I feel.
It's the judgment, and I think it's also the fear of the unknown, because I think with people like you doing what you're doing and other people in the creative industries, is creating a now, like for the future, people can see that it is possible. And there are now career paths open. So there's younger generation in my family are like, oh, I want to try acting, or I want to try presenting. But I think it's because they've visually been able to see someone like myself navigate those career paths. Like, so it is, I think, slowly for the next generation, like things will start changing, but it's because of you doing it, which is obviously one of the great reasons why you're helping to do it, you know? Where do you think, like, you want to take from doing the documentaries and the radio, like, is it presenting, is it acting, like, where do you want to take, like, your career, like, moving forward?
I would love to act more.
Okay.
It's my first love. I did a play recently, which is probably the one that you saw, and I hadn't acted for ages, and I was like, God, I'm probably going to be really bad. And I was actually all right. Like, reviews weren't too bad, but we know we've got to take reviews with a pinch of salt. But yeah, the reviews were good.
What was the play? Fact. What was the play called?
Oh, it's hilarious. It was a Shakespeare play. Never done Shakespeare in my life. It's a play called Measure for Measure, and hilariously, I got the lead part, which I didn't expect to get.
Yeah, so presenting, acting, is there anything else that you'd like to, because I feel like you're going to dabble in maybe other stuff, just because I see you do so many creative types of work. Is there anything else that you'd like to try or do within, like, your career path, even now or maybe in the next, like, 5 to 10 years?
I don't know why, but ever since I was a kid, I've always had an affinity with working in developing countries. And when I was as a child, I was like, I really want to have an orphanage, which is a really weird thing to say as a child, because you're also a child. Anyway, so the one kind of area that I've not gone into yet, and it was something that I did at university, was I sort of studied international development, and I wrote a dissertation. My dissertation was all about, like, affordable medicines in the global south and providing healthcare to developing countries. And when I joined the BBC, actually what I really wanted to do, and what I would love to go on to do, and this is a whole area that people don't even know about, is to probably combine that interest in working in developing countries, but not in a way that's patronising, like, we're going to come from the West and tell you what you need. Not in that way, but to use the knowledge that they already have on the ground and the experience and resource we can potentially bring from the West to see what we can do to elevate those communities. So that's definitely a chapter in my life that I would love to pursue. I almost did. There's a guy called Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who is the founder of Grameen Bank, which is sort of microfinance, and it's all about helping to provide finance for small businesses in developing countries. And I almost kind of went down that route, and then I won the gig at the BBC. But I would love to, I'd feel like my sort of mission wouldn't be complete if it only finished in the UK. I do feel a degree and sense of responsibility to work in the developing world, whether that's, you know, areas of Pakistan or other countries, I don't know yet. But that's something that my Abu does a lot. And I've been to Muzaffarabad in Pakistan, which was hit really badly by the earthquakes. And there is a hospital and an orphanage up there and a school up there. And I went there with my Abu, and he's been brilliant in terms of providing loads of aid when it comes to the floods in Pakistan and stuff like that. So I would love to kind of carry on the work that he's done in that space as well.
That's amazing, because it's like, it's ambitious, and it's taking you away from what you're doing right now, but in a smart way. I'm conscious of time, because I don't want to keep you. One message that you'd like the youth who watch this show to take away about life, career, progression, what would you like to say to them?
If you don't see people like you, I get it. It doesn't mean that it's not possible. So pursue it, despite how challenging it might be. Find people that are doing the thing that you want to do, whether they look like you or not. Reach out to them, be open, be honest, be kind. Believe in yourself, be sincere, and do your dua before you do anything.
Really good advice. This has been Aik Cup Chai, presented to you by Independent Urdu. My name is Mim Shaikh. This is my co-host Ali. We'll be back next week. Peace.
Thank you.
Wicked.
I need to finish my chai.
You do?
It's actually really nice.
And we need to get a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to miss your train. I'm worried about it. It's 7:51.
51. So,
You want to take a picture quick and bounce, or?